Hello there, this is Tim. I wanted to talk a little bit about today on an ongoing video series I want to start doing, a diary, so to speak, on learning Japanese. And what is it like as an English speaker that's spoken English his whole life, that hasn't been really good at foreign languages anyway, growing up to actually embark on this kind of quest of learning Japanese. Now, I want to learn this language for a couple different reasons. First off, the language itself and the whole culture of it really intrigues me. When I lived in Hawaii, Japanese was a huge culture there and a huge thing, and I really, really loved what I saw and what I saw in person there as this English dude witnessing what Japanese is kind of like secondhand from that. But I also really enjoy kind of the media that they create. I love, Nintendo games. I love that whole aspect of it. I'm really digging the whole anime kind of scene and just all the different Japanese things that are going on in the world as far as media, as well as just the culture itself seems really cool. So I want to kind of embark on this quest of learning Japanese. And how do you learn Japanese out of school with no kind of time for training and stuff? So the first thing I started to do is what they call passive learning. And this is something I discovered, both it seemed to make sense, plus I saw a couple of people on the webs mentioning this is kind of a thing that's done to learn now. This is something that wasn't as available in the past as it is today in the age of podcasting. So a couple things I've been doing to passively learn. This is where you're in the process of making the language not sound foreign. You want to be immersed as much as you can in the language, so the text, the audio of the language, and all that it is doesn't sound foreign to you. It sounds native to you. So a big part of this is listening to Japanese people just speak in Japanese as you would walking down the streets of Japan. And podcasts have been a really cool mechanism to enable that, because podcasts, you have people that are just talking conversationally to their friends about different topics. And you hear Japanese in a more conversational style that's not meant for learning, but just meant to just hear what the language is like. And I've found a couple of podcasts that are in my area of interest, that is gaming, so far. One that Capcom puts on that is kind of about Monster Hunter. Gaudio is another one. Game Passion Times is a video podcast. And there's also a really cool podcast that is an 8-bit mushroom head with headphones that is a Nintendo-focused Japanese podcast. And I found these by just going to the iTunes store, but in Japan. So you can turn iTunes into a Japan iTunes. And when you can subscribe to things on your desktop, iTunes version, it will sync over your iCloud account to all your different iOS devices. So you can hot swap between all the podcast stores pretty easily, and just do a Google Translate for kind of your favorite terms, and you'll find some cool podcasts that are in your area. And when you find stuff that are in your area, you'll be drawn more to listen to it, because there is English words that stick out that they don't have Japanese equivalents for, and you'll kind of understand what they're talking about at that time. So for me, that was a good area to start. I also picked up a subscription to Crunchyroll. So Crunchyroll is a really, really cool service available in the United States, where you're able to subscribe for, I think, $8 or $12 a month to Japanese content. And not just Japanese, but some other languages as well. Asian content, so to speak. But it's a really good source of Japanese anime. And it's available natively on the Apple TV. You don't need to AirPlay it. There's a native app available there on the Apple TV 2 and 3 to use. There's an iOS app. And you're able to set it up where you can have English subtitles, or you can turn subtitles off completely if you want to be more ambitious like that. So I've been really enjoying Attack on Titan. It's a new anime that just came out this year, and it's stellar. It's the plot's great, the art style is wonderful, and the characters are great. So hearing the language in that way and seeing the Japanese text also in that show is fantastic. I've also been listening to Japanese music, so that's another area of auditory input for learning and passively kind of hearing this language in ways you wouldn't before. So Scandal is a really cool Japanese girl band that just has really high energy to it and is really, really solid. So Scandal is by far my favorite Japanese band I've come across so far. I've also gotten some tracks from different popular Japanese artists, but Scandal is where I would start out with that. I've also picked up the Harry Potter book, a Japanese audiobook version of that. So I've got that I can listen to. I've got the Japanese audiobook version of the New Testament. So that's kind of the audio input. And visual input, I've also, besides Crunchyroll, which has been fantastic, but Crunchyroll is great too because it'll do, on the Apple TV, play episodes back to back. So you can fall asleep to hearing Japanese through that, and you'll hear it as you sleep that way too. But also, searching around in Netflix and iTunes, there is some video content outside of that. YouTube is another great source. Search out Japanese YouTube channels. It's harder to find this stuff, but once you subscribe to a couple of solid Japanese YouTube channels, people are just talking like this, it's another great source of, immersion into Japanese language that you wouldn't have otherwise. So that's that. The other thing I'm starting to do is just simply looking at the hiragana. So I found this cool app from my iPad called the Kana Chart. The Kana Chart has both hiragana and katakana, and those are the two out of the three written languages there. I'm starting with hiragana, and basically what I'm trying to do is just a few characters a day. I'm not trying to do too crazy and try to learn too much at once, but now I recognize when I see this character, it is the sound. I'm not sure what the sound is itself. There's an audio thing I can turn on. Let me see if I can do that actually. But so I'm starting to have character recognition of the hiragana, and that's really helpful as I am actually starting to recognize, as I look at Japanese text in Twitter and different sources, I am starting to recognize different characters just standing out that, I recognize what that is. I recognize that character standing out as something I know, and I know that's or E or U or whatever it is. Saki, I actually know how to spell that now because that's a pretty simple one with those two hiragana symbols. And it's really encouraging to just slowly being able to recognize these things. And these are things that I didn't know last week. So I started this a week ago, and I'm starting to passively learn and passively make Japanese less foreign. And I'll be learning more and more as time goes by. And I'm curious how far I can go with passively learning and just adding a couple characters each day to that and seeing where that takes me. I also have a Japanese 3DS LL, and the entire OS and everything in it is pretty much Japanese. So I picked up Monster Hunter 4, and I've been trying to play Japanese games. So that's another area of input. I've also subscribed to Nintendo's Japanese YouTube channel, and a good area to watch there is their Nintendo Directs, because they will do Nintendo Directs where they're explaining things in Japanese in a similar way. You probably saw them in the American version of that, the English version, and you can also, as they're pointing things out, it's a really almost educational way of watching a video, because you're seeing things being explained. You're seeing you're watching videos and having Japanese explanations of what you are seeing. So Nintendo Directs are especially useful in this regard to passively learning a language. So those are just a couple things I've been doing this very first week in my Japanese studies, I guess, or passively learning right now, where I'm just kind of soaking all of this stuff in. I'm listening to as much Japanese as possible, looking at some of the hiragana, and not quite in study mode, but just kind of passively soaking it in and making this stuff less foreign to me. So I hope this helps you. And if you're starting to learn Japanese and if you're trying to get into this stuff, this is what I'm doing. And I've already seen results as far as the language not sounding so foreign and starting to do character recognition. And it's encouraging. So hope this helps. If you guys are Japanese speakers that were once English only speakers, would love comments here in this video for different tips you might have moving forward with this. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more of this video series, this diary series, more like it, on just learning Japanese from the English perspective here. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. Bye-bye.